Hello, I'm Cliff Brock for World Travel Plus. We scout out those areas of the world that the travel agents and travel brochures don't tell you about. The out-of-the-way places that make nice addenda to the travels that you otherwise do. Join us today and see where our travels have taken us this time. I'm meeting today with Ansley Blackwell of the Centro Asturiano in downtown Tampa, Florida. This is a 100-plus-year-old social center for Spaniards who came here more than 100 years ago. Ansley, thank you for having us today.
Course.
Tell us a little bit, kind of an overview of the center.
Yeah, so Centro Asturiano started as a mutual aid society established in 1902. Now serves the community in kind of a different way, but I'll get into that as we go through our tour. So I'm going to start us right over here. So Centro Asturiano, like I said, was established in 1902. Now, we didn't have a building right when we started. We got our first building around 1904, but we started on the second floor of a building in 7th Avenue on Ybor, in Ybor City. And then we got our first building. It was a red brick building. It stood on the property that you're on now. Looked very different architecturally. Now, this building actually burnt down in 1910. There's two theories as to how this happened. There was an Ybor City firebug who was kind of going around burning down some buildings, and we had some flammable paints in our theater. So we're not sure how it started, but we lost our building in 1910. They were able to fundraise $110,000 to build the building that you're standing in right now. Now, we weren't always Centro Asturiano de Tampa. We initially started as Centro Asturiano de la Habana. So we were an extension of the Centro Asturiano in Havana, Cuba in the early 1900s. And that's why these are our original membership certificates. This one's from 1914, I believe, says Centro Asturiano de la Habana and not of Tampa, because we were Centro Asturiano de la Habana Tampa delegation. Now, Centro Asturiano was established as a mutual aid society. So that means it supported immigrants coming to Tampa to work in the cigar industry. When Henry B. Plant brought the railway system here and the cigar industry started booming in Haya and Ybor, and there was a German club, there was an Italian club, there's still the Italian club, there's still a Cuban club, and then there was Centro Asturiano, which historically was for immigrants of Asturias in northern Spain, where all of these kind of families came. This mural is kind of dedicated to where our members started. So just some kind of elements on here. The wood shoes. Asturias is kind of like the Switzerland of Spain, culturally and not culturally, geographically. So it's very mountainous. It rains a lot. It gets very cold. And there's a lot of farming. So these shoes were used for the farmers. They could walk out into the fields when it was muddy and they wouldn't sink. Their shoes wouldn't get ruined. Their feet wouldn't get wet. Some farmers still choose to use these, but just kind of a symbol in the region now. Well, the next part of it, you'll see some apples. Now, while a lot of regions in Spain or in Europe grow grapes and they're known for European wines, Italy, France is known for champagne. Spain and Asturias grows apples. Now that produces a cider called sidra. And you may be wondering, well, why is it pouring all the way down the wall into a glass down here? So sidra is poured from above your head into a glass that you hold down at your hip. Not sure as to why they choose to do it that way, if it aerates it differently, but that is, if you go to Asturias and you order a sidra, they're going to come out and they're going to pour it from above their head into a glass at their hip. We also have some bagpipes. So there was a slight Scottish influence in northern Spain, and which is where we get the bagpipe. It's different from a Scottish bagpipe, but it's still a bagpipe, and it's still very traditionally played for ceremonies and different things. And then we have a figure here, and that is Our Lady of Covadonga. Now, when Asturias and there was a war and the Moors were trying to enter into Spain and kind of take over, Asturias said this isn't going to happen here. So one of the kind of leaders of the army went into a cave to pray, And he said the Lady of Covadonga presented herself to him and said, "You're going to come out victorious in this battle." Now, when the Moors were there and they were invading, they entered through a valley because the city of Covadonga is built on a mountain looking down into the valley. So the Moors entered into the valley and they were able to kind of fire down onto everybody in the valley. And they came out victorious. And now, to this day, if you visit Asturias, you'll find shirts that say "Unconquered" because the Moors were unable to conquer Asturias. And they tribute that to the Lady of Covadonga. Now this one is, so we have where they started, and now you have where they've come. So this is all dedicated to Ybor city and how they got established here. Now, a lot of people came on ships. So Spaniards had a limitation on how many could enter through Ellis Island. Now you could go to Cuba, stay for 1 week, establish residency, and then come into Florida on one of 2 ships that Henry B. Plant had operating, because at the time in the early 1900s, we had free passage between Cuba and the port of Tampa. And so there was 2 ships that made that journey twice a week, the Mascot and the Olivet, which is the ship that many of our members that helped establish the club come on. So we have, like, this is Teodomiro Suarez. This is one of our original membership books. He was our longest and oldest living member. He joined in 1902, and he came over on the Olivet, which was the sister ship to the Mascot. And that's also why you see the American flag, the Cuban flag, and the Spanish flag represented, because that was the journey for many. You have 7th Avenue, which is such a staple in Ybor City, but where we found our foundation. And then there's a couple other just kind of things. The cigar rolling is a tribute to why many of them came here. The chickens, which roosters are all over Ybor City if you've been, and some other elements that I'll touch on a little bit further into our tour. Now, I want you to take a look at this mural above the door before we enter into this room. This is our Salon Asturias. And originally, when the building was built, this was our cantina. Now this was a gentleman's only room, and the gentleman would come to read the newspaper, the La Gaceta, the family-owned 3-generation newspaper produced in traditionally English and Spanish, then they added Italian, German, all the other languages years later. But they would read that in here. They'd play dominoes, smoke their cigars, drink their cafecitos, play cards. So this is kind of a tribute to everything that happened in here.
Ansley, thank you so much for your time today. We've learned an inordinate amount about the immigrants who came here and the history of this building. It sounds like a wonderful venue.
Yes, we hope you guys learned some new things and were able to take away some of the history and really why these mutual aid clubs were established here in Ybor City.
Well, let's get the word out about the club and see what we can find.
Yes.
We've been today at the Centro Asturiano Social Club. Lasted over 100 years. We hope that if you come to the Tampa area, you'll find time to come out and visit this club. Tours are on Tuesday, 10 a.m. Call ahead, get them scheduled, and come back frequently to World Travel Plus. I'm Cliff Brock. Hope to see you next time, and don't forget, like and subscribe.